Tech-led sell-off on Wall Street as Nasdaq tumbles, led by heavyweights like Tesla, Nvidia, Alphabet and Meta. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific open mixed. The SGX Nifty suggests a muted start for the Indian market. Defense stocks in Europe slide as investors weighed the impact of the Wagner rebellion on the Ukraine war. The Russia ruble recovers against the US dollar after hitting a 15-month low. The Russian MOEX index closes with a cut of over 1.5%. Aditya Birla Capital launches a QIP with the floor price set at about 176 rupees per share. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 the company plans to raise up to 1,750 crore rupees via the QIP. All steadies after tensions in major producer Russia cool following a weekend of geopolitical chaos. Brent crude is trading at $74 a barrel. Gold prices also edge higher on the back of investors' flight to safety. Russian President Vladimir Putin says organizers of the armed Wagner mutiny will be brought to justice. Meanwhile, chief of the Wagner group says they never intended to overthrow the government and has been reportedly exiled to Belarus. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those were the top headlines. A lot that is happening in the global markets. And tomorrow we are shut for a holiday. So, of course, we'll be tracking all the global cues that we get today as well. But first up, let's take a look at what is happening in the Asian markets right now. Largely mixed, you have to say. The Hang Seng is up around 1% as we speak. But we did get a weak handover from the Wall Street, especially tech stocks not doing so well. So Nasdaq was lower in trade. So while Hang Seng is seeing gains right now, Taiwanese index is in the red, cuts of around 0.3%. Similar is the story for Nikkei as well. It is lower in trade, cuts of around 0.8% there. So it's Straits Times which is higher, Shanghai which is higher, but the others which are in the red right now. The SGX Nifty, that'll come up for you on the screen, and that one is indicating a mild start in the green or a flatter start, so to say. We'll have to be tracking that because yesterday we did consolidate, or we were range bound in our own trading session, and it is the monthly options expiry as well. Let's talk about the U.S. markets now. Wall Street ended yesterday's trading session lower. The Dow Jones finished nearly flat. The S&P 500 closed 0.4% lower, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite shed 156 points. Nasdaq's underperformance comes after tech stocks saw heavy selling. Tesla was down nearly 6%, while Alphabet, Nvidia, and other Meta platforms all finished more than 3% lower. Meanwhile, President Biden has announced a $42 billion plan to give every American household access to high-speed internet by 2030. And tech giant Meta has announced a virtual reality subscription service that costs $7.99 a month. The service, called MetaQuest Plus, will give users access to 2 new games each month. Okay, all right. Interesting stuff happening in the technology arena. We'll keep bringing you more details on that one. But for now, let's also listen to former Fed President Robert Kaplan as he speaks on the U.S. economy and Fed's rate trajectory.
On the side for pausing, as I said, goods are weak. Every Fed funds rate squeezes small banks and squeezes small business that are very sensitive to it. On the other hand, you've got this government money, and my guess is they'll use, and they should use, I would use every bit of the next month to see how these cross currents settle out. But I think people should be prepared that the Fed may need to ultimately raise rates at least once or twice more, because I think the economy is not slowing as much as people might think, and the service sector in particular is going to be more resilient, I think, because of this government spending.
Okay, all right. So that is about some expert opinion coming in from former Fed President Robert Kaplan. But this is all about the global market action. How will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have a research team joining in with just that, what the trade setup is looking like, and the stocks that are likely to be in the news as well. Hey guys, a very good morning. Rima, let me come across to you first up. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, you know, it's the SGX Nifty is again suggesting a very, very quiet start, just up close to about 10 to 20 odd points. But the Asian markets are a tad bit subdued, and they are taking cues from Wall Street, where the weakness that we saw towards the end of last week continued. So once again, those magnificent 7 stocks, the technology names, continue to struggle in trade. There were a few downgrades as well. So Goldman Sachs downgraded Tesla. The stock sold off close to about 7%. You had UBS, which downgraded Alphabet. So that stock was under pressure. In fact, across the board, even Nvidia was down close to about 3.7%. For our own markets, yesterday was a fairly range-bound session. The good part was the mid-caps, which were showing weakening momentum towards the end of last week, were stable. So in fact, the mid-cap index roared by the end of it and was up close to about 1%. The Nifty needs to hold on to its 20-day moving average. This is a level which is pretty much held out since April. Even yesterday, we got very close to that, 18,650 mark, which is a 20-day exponential moving average. So we need to be watching out for that. In terms of flows, nothing much to report. The DII's net bought 250 crore. The FI sold about 400 crore. Secondary market action continues in terms of sales. So you've got an Aditya Birla QIP that's estimated to be about 750 crores. Sapphire Foods block worth about 30 lakh shares or 3 million shares. On the primary market side, Idea Forge IPO day 2 today, but on day 1 itself, it's a very strong subscription from retail as well as HNI, and Seng DLM IPO will be opening for subscription, and this is in the electronics manufacturing space, and again, it gets majority of its revenues from aerospace and defense. So it's pretty much ticking all the right boxes in terms of what's hot. Seng DLM, because it's an EMS company, plus caters to aerospace and defense. Back to you.
Okay, all right. That is the market setup and some stocks that will be in focus as well. But let's talk about the other ones. Abhishek is here to list out those stocks in focus. Abhishek.
Well, to begin with, City Union Bank, they have taken a board approval for a fundraise of up to 500 crores. This is an enabling resolution that every lender does take. So, Aditya Birla Capital, they have launched a QIP of 1,750 crores, which is at an indicative price band of 170 to 176 per share. So, this looks like a discount of about 3% to the current market price. BLS International Services, the board of directors of one of the subsidiary has approved for an IPO for fundraising. So Sapphire Foods, they have a block deal coming up today. 3 million shares which will be traded between 1,345 per share to about 1,391 per share is the indicative price. So they seek to raise about $51 million via this placement. Navin Florin, the board will consider fundraising on June 30th, and we have ICICI Proof, which has got a show cause notice from DGGI for not paying tax of up to rupees 492 crores. Pertaining to a period of July 12, that is 2012 to up to July 2022. So the matter largely relates to an industry-wide issue of input tax credit that they had availed. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Those are all the stocks in focus. This is our Power Prep segment. It's time for a break now. When we return, banks indicate they need more time to implement the new FEMA rules imposing a 20% tax collected at source on forex transactions. More on that when we return. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Well, sources are telling CNBC TV 18 that banks are not prepared to start collecting 20% TCS from customers on foreign spends as early as the 1st of July. While banks want the deadline to be extended, tour operators have urged the government to roll back the levy. Sapna Das joins us with these important details. Sapna, what are the banking sources telling you?
Well, banks at their end are indicating very clearly that they are not ready for this July 1 deadline of the rollout of the new TCS regime. They seem to be indicating that there is the issue of multiple rates of TCS. For example, on 19th May, the government had said that up to 7 lakh rupee, there's going to be an exemption for individual spends on international debit and credit cards, for instance. So you have a zero rate up to 7, then beyond 7, it's going to be 20%. Similarly, you have a separate rate for education expenditure financed via loans, something different for health. So basically, the banks are indicating that probably they need some uniformity and clarity from the government at this end. And as far as these multiple rates are concerned, if that's going to be the norm, then the systems are not ready, and they will have to look at a deadline much beyond July 1. Now, the government had indicated in the past that they'll be coming out with a quick clarification, but that has not happened yet. So it remains to be seen what the rates are going to be, which are going to be those categories, and whether this July 1 deadline is going to be adhered to by the government or some relaxation would be possible on that front.
This is a very important update, Sapna. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we'll keep coming back to you as and when there is a progress on this one. So that is about the 20% tax collected at source on foreign transactions, which will be applicable from 1st of July. But moving on to another interesting story, financial influencers who have been on the regulatory radar are in the news again. An ad with a photograph of YouTube-based CA Rachna Ranade appeared across national dailies along with the IT Ministry logo. Minister of State Rajiv Chandrasekhar responded to a tweet by journalist Sucheta Dalal on the matter. The minister clarified the ads do not mean the government endorses the content creators. Shivani Bazaz joins us now. Shivani, tell us more about these ads and the outcry around this.
Well, yes, the new advertisement featuring YouTuber CA Rachna Ranade has sparked a new debate on social media and has angered a lot of registered investment advisors too. Remember, the problem with this particular ad is that it has logos of METI and India G20 seemingly showcasing their support to the advertisement. Many financial experts on Twitter and other social media are questioning why the government is endorsing particular individuals. However, MOS Electronics and Information Technology Rajiv Chandrasekhar has clarified on Twitter that the usage of METI logo does not mean that the government or the ministry endorses any person or digital platforms in any way. The minister has also added that he has advised more careful usage of government logos in future. We have also reached out to Google and YouTube as their logos were also on the advertisements. Some registered investment advisors that CNBC TV 18 spoke to said that the advertisements are problematic because it gives an impression that the financial influencers are the real expert when it comes to investment advice. And those who have registered with SEBI for the job are being burdened with compliance, even for regular communication with their clients. Important to note that SEBI has been cracking down on financial influencers in the past who have offered investment advice without the requisite registration and licenses to make sure that the retail investors do not fall for wrong, free-flowing advice on social media and other internet sites. Recently, SEBI had barred PR Sundar, a finfluencer with over 1 million followers on YouTube, from securities market for a year for providing advisory services without the requisite registration.
Shivani, thank you so much for bringing this story. This story actually continues, and there has been a lot of outcry around this as well. We'll slip into a short break. Up next, we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Well, we've spoken about a whole host of things, but a lot of action in the commodity space as well. Manisha Gupta joins us as always. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Hey, morning. Thank you for that. Well, I'll start with the crude oil prices, which are trading firm now, but clearly the WTI holds below $70 a barrel. But the political instability in Russia has been a supportive factor. The demand concerns from China, of course, keep the prices in check. For the month of June, we are down 5.5% for the crude oil prices. So yet another month which is going down in the negative there. The metal prices also have been under pressure. June could be a month that could see pressure going forward. The markets still are awaiting the China stimulus to support the manufacturing sector. The new yuan loans in May have totaled 1.3 trillion. Markets were anticipating 1.6 trillion, and that has been a bit of a disappointment. So you have copper prices trading off its 6-week highs. Steel is off its 2-month highs that it was trading at. The markets also have come in under pressure for the iron ore prices, where we did see 7-month highs. And same is the case with zinc, aluminum also. A second straight day of negative moves coming in for this one. The markets are now looking for the U.S. consumer confidence numbers, that is today, and the European Union inflation data comes in on Friday. These are two important events to watch out for.
Okay, all right. We'll keep a track of that one. Thank you, Manisha, for bringing us all those details. Now, let's get you the latest updates on the fallout of that weekend rebellion in Russia. Russian President Putin slammed the organizers of the Wagner mutiny that challenged his grip over the Kremlin for the first time in decades. He said the crisis only brought the nation closer and Russia would bring the organizers to justice. NBC's Keir Simmons has the latest.
President Vladimir Putin addressing a nation, but focusing on one man, while never mentioning militia commander Yevgeny Prigozhin by name, slamming what he called a militarized mutiny committed by traitors. All after that defiant new message from Prigozhin, whose rebellion rocked Russia, insisting he did not try to topple President Putin, but was protesting how his Wagner Group troops were being treated. Prigozhin last seen last Saturday night in the back of an SUV, cheered by crowds, his whereabouts still unknown, after a deal to end the rebellion. Prigozhin has been in a fierce power struggle with the Russian Defense Minister Shoigu, who he accuses of trying to undermine Wagner troops in Ukraine. Russia releasing this short video of Shoigu today with no indication when or where it was recorded. An extraordinary 72 hours that all began Friday night, around 10:30 local time. Prigozhin calling for a march for justice into Russia, not a coup, he insisted. By 7:30 Saturday morning, Prigozhin, facing little resistance, takes over Russia's military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don, berating 2 Russian senior commanders, demanding they hand over Shoigu. President Putin then going on national television, accusing Prigozhin of treason, vowing to put down the uprising. By Saturday afternoon, Wagner troops are on the move to Moscow. At one point, video showing them just 289 miles from the capital. But on Saturday night, that mysterious deal is made. Prigozhin's march to Moscow is dramatically halted. A former Russian deputy foreign minister telling us it highlights Russian action in Ukraine.
The people are asking more and more the questions, why it's so long, why it's so long.
We spoke to Russians in Moscow tonight. What happens now, do you think?
I don't know.
President Biden on his message to Russia.
We made clear that we were not involved.
Okay, that is a very important global story. We'll keep getting you updates on this one, but that's all we have on Power Breakfast. But before that, today on the occasion of World MSME Day, Network 18 launches a special campaign to celebrate the entrepreneurial journey of MSMEs, from embracing digitization and innovative technologies to defining the roadmap for India at 100.
This World MSME Day, celebrate the entrepreneurial journey of MSMEs, from embracing digitization and innovative technologies to defining the roadmap for India at 100. News 18 Network and Misho's one-of-a-kind partnership is uniting entrepreneurs and visionaries to accelerate the India MSME sector through dynamic fireside chats and panel discussions, and applaud exceptional sellers who are shaping a future-ready India. Mission to 100 million, presented by News 18 Network in collaboration with Misho.